It is very likely that most of you have never heard of faculty psychology. Faculty psychology is a point of view that conceived of the human mind as consisting of separate powers. This is faculty psychology in plain English. Faculty psychologists believe that people are born with certain faculties or tasks and abilities, hence the name faculty psychology. They were also interested in measuring and analyzing individual differences, very much like psychologists do today. The very first idea of faculty psychology came from Christian von Wolff and Thomas Reid in 1734, but was perfected and made known by Franz Gall later on. Gall was widely known for his belief in the localization of mental functions and his formulation of phrenology. He also believed that a human's mind was separate from the body, and bumps on the brain corresponded to the personality and abilities of the person. Now you may ask what phrenology is. Phrenology is the study of the human skull, based on the concept that the brain is the origin of the mind, and the different parts of the brain have different functions, similar to the theory of faculty psychology. There are said to be 27 faculties in phrenology. The basic ideas of Gall's theory are that the brain is the origin of the mind is composed of multiple distinct faculties. Each faculty must be in a different region of the brain. The size of an organ is a measure of its power. The shape of the brain is determined by the development of different organs, and as the skull takes its shape from the brain, the surface of the skull can be read as an accurate index of psychological traits. Early on in the 19th century, there were not a whole lot of concepts or theories that people abided by, making faculty psychology and phrenology two of the most widely accepted concepts of learning during this time period. There was, however, the idea of British associationism. This was the belief that the human mind had to develop, and people were born knowing nothing. They had the idea that the brain didn't have certain abilities right away, completely going against the idea of faculty psychology. This theory of psychology also stated that the mind consisted of separate powers: the will, emotions, and the intellect. Under this idea, the mind was considered a muscle. The role of education was to strengthen and exercise the intellect to the point where it could control the other two powers of the mind, the will and emotions. With the lack of knowledge of the mind during this time, there was nobody to tell people if faculty psychology was accurate or not. Late in the 19th century, the idea of faculty psychology was about to be challenged for the first time. The man to do it was William James. James and a student of his, Edward Thorndike, conducted a study to try and prove Gall and his colleagues wrong. The study took place while James taught an experimental psychology course earlier in his career. If the idea of faculty psychology was proven incorrect, it would create a new theory about the somewhat unknown topic of psychology. When the word of this study spread, some people started to have their doubts about faculty psychology and what it stood for. This caused somewhat of a competition between Gall and James, and a diversion in people's understanding of how the mind functions. It was later proven that Gall, in fact, had been incorrect in thinking that bumps on the brain corresponded to the personality and abilities of people. However, he was correct in believing that different mental abilities were associated with different regions of the brain. Experimental psychologists also had a different idea of what the mind consisted of. During their experiments, scientists decided that the faculties of the mind were nothing but descriptive concepts meant to classify mental events that occur in a person's mind. This is somewhat similar to the thoughts of British associationists, in the sense that the mind is empty and people are born with no knowledge. Franz Gall was known for experimenting with people and their skull to try and tell what traits they would have. He did not really have anyone to tell him otherwise, so in turn, he led people on to believe the theory that he had. In the end, the beliefs of faculty psychologists and phrenologists have been discredited. This theory is not accurate today, and with the advances in technology and medicine nowadays, it is known that the formation of the skull does not predict the personalities and abilities of people. This has been Faculty Psychology in Plain English.